The Walt Disney Company is the apex predator of movie production and distribution, but it wasn't always that way. At one point in the not so distant past, when you said the word Disney, you were talking about either their massive theme parks in California and Florida, or you were talking about one of their hand drawn animated movies: Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, you get it. The first significant change to this model came shortly after Bob Iger was appointed CEO in late 2005. Within a few short months, Disney would purchase Pixar in a move that would foreshadow a number of big money acquisitions the company would make in the future. Within the next decade and a half, Disney would go on to purchase Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm and Star Wars, and 20th Century Fox. While those three acquisitions would shake up the entire film industry and go on to generate billions of dollars for the mouse, it was adding Pixar to the fold that proved Disney would be taking their growth seriously. There have been some very understandable and justifiable leadership shakeups at the company, but the quality of their films hasn't skipped a beat. Soul, the latest Pixar film, was released on Christmas Day of 2020, and it's one of their very best. Before we get started, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, click on that red subscribe button and the little notification bell right next to it. That way you know whenever I post new content. I'll be discussing some of the minor story details, but not spoiling anything. Anything I'll talk about in this review is stuff that you've seen in the trailers. Confession time, I can actually count the number of Pixar movies that I've seen in the theater on one hand, which is kind of pathetic. Toy Story, Toy Story 2, A Bug's Life, Up, and The Incredibles. Don't ask me why I haven't seen all of their movies on the big screen, because I really don't have an answer for you. That doesn't mean I haven't seen most of their movies, I just haven't seen them all in the theaters. Pete Docter, who directed Monsters, Inc., Up, and Inside Out, returns to write and direct a movie that tackles a great many topics. It's a movie about life, death, failure, regret, friendship, despair, pain, and ultimately, finding your spark. It's about finding that one thing in your life that gives you drive and purpose. This is the kind of relatable movie that's able to positively impact people regardless of their age, sex, race, or religion. Docter has been able to work these elements into all of his films, and Soul proves no different. The film follows Joe Gardner, a middle school band teacher in New York City. Joe's a rather unassuming man trying to instill something into his students. What that something is, well, it doesn't even seem like Joe knows the answer to that. Because when Joe isn't teaching his students how to nail the trombone, he has dreams and aspirations to be a professional musician. Joe finds himself at a crossroads when he finally lands the gig of his dreams and then falls down a manhole to his untimely demise. Displeased with what is a rather unfortunate turn of events, Joe decides to do whatever it takes to get back to his body, which is now lying in a coma in a hospital. But in the most Pixar of ways, Joe escapes his journey to the great beyond and finds himself in a strange region called the Great Before. This is the area where human souls are given their various personality traits before being sent to Earth to live their lives. This is actually pretty grown-up material for a movie like this, but that's the great thing about Pixar. They don't make animated kids movies. They make deep and impactful family films that just happen to be animated. And in very Pixar fashion, Soul has all of the jokes, humor, and heart we've come to expect. Jamie Foxx gives an outstanding vocal performance in the lead role, exuding a simple man whose deep love of music impacts every aspect of his life. Everyone from Joe's mom to his barber sees his passion, even if they have varying degrees of doubt or faith in his long-term prospects. Tina Fey's 22 is the other lead character, and she brings just the right combination of charm and energy to the role, even if the plot manages to push the character into a fairly predictable conclusion. The chemistry present between the two leads is undeniable, and Pixar once again proves that their casting choices over the years have been nearly flawless. Whether it's Albert Brooks in Finding Nemo, or Tom Hanks and Tim Allen in Toy Story, putting these awesome A-list actors into these movies yields perfect results nearly every single time. Voice acting isn't just talking into a microphone and then calling it a day. It's just as rigorous, difficult, and taxing as doing all of those things you would do in front of a camera. The point is that Pixar once again proves that they're the gold standard when it comes to any project like this. As for the rest of the production, Pixar proves once again to be at the top of the class. Their visual representations of the great beyond and the great before have this very ethereal and mystical quietness to them. Pixar's version of New York City is like the complete opposite. It's just as loud and noisy and smelly as you would imagine. As someone who used to live there, they nailed everything from the spacing of the buildings to the clutter on the streets to the methodical and predictable sway the human body does when a train slows down. These small little details add up over the course of the film, and everything about this world just feels right. Soul was originally supposed to be released into theaters in the middle of 2020, but the pandemic changed all of that. While I reckon that Disney could have sat on it until theaters were opened back up, the decision to put it out on Disney Plus seems like it was the right move. This isn't a big budget movie with explosions and gunshots. I'm sure it's got a decent sized budget, but it's a small feeling movie, one that actually ends up coming out at the perfect time. Let me explain. Soul is a movie about finding what moves you. As someone who worked in an industry that was completely wiped out by the pandemic, and I can speak from experience and say this, I hope that if you've been impacted like I have, you're able to take something away from this film. I hope you're able to wake up one day and see the world with fresh eyes and an open heart. The last year has been tremendously difficult for everyone from every walk of life. Nobody has been left unscathed by the massive shifts that are happening on a global scale. If you have the time and the means, start doing something you always wanted to do. Learn to play an instrument, take up a new hobby, teach yourself a new piece of software, start a YouTube channel. Soul is an awesome movie. It tells an incredible tale about finding yourself and believing in whatever moves you wherever you are. You'll be hard pressed to find a better movie for right now than Soul. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the review, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. And if you found the review helpful, share it with your friends. Let me know down in the comments what you loved about Soul, and I'll see you next Wednesday at 9 a.m.